Hi, this is Dr. Susan Berger speaking with you from Morrisville, Pennsylvania. I've run a holistic healthcare practice for about 25 years, and I have helped many people over those years stay in alignment in not only body, but mind and spirit as well. One of the things I've noticed over the years is that many of us do so many things unconsciously, not only with our health, but in lots of the other things we do in our lives. I have a wonderful mentor of mine who used to talk about the mother, father, teacher, and preacher, and the influence that they have on us. I think I need to add doctors to that as well. Sometimes the influence isn't so good. So what we need to do is to start to question those kinds of things. When I was much younger, I began to identify this type of thing in myself, where I wasn't sure if I was doing something because I was told to, I should, I'd get approval for it, or if it was something that I really loved doing, that I really wanted to do. And I remember putting a sign on my closet door that said, "I will not should" on myself. And that was at least like 25, 30 years ago probably, and it's an ever-going process to keep checking in with myself about that. I'd like to give you a couple simple examples of how we do this. One really common example that I see a lot is if somebody has a fever, like we have a fever or a child has a fever, the knee-jerk reaction is bring it down, right? Take Tylenol, bring the fever down, fever, bring it down. That's just kind of like what we do. And if we don't think about it, then we are not realizing that what that fever is doing is the immune system fighting the virus or bacteria. So once the Tylenol wears off and the fever starts coming up, the body's going, "Oh right, now I can really get back to doing my job." And then unconsciously we take more Tylenol and we're pushing the fever down. So in a way, sometimes we're actually prolonging our illness because we're not supporting the body in doing its job and what it knows how to do. Another example would be, say we're all in San Diego and it's 90, 95 degrees outside. It's a potluck, so I bring some macaroni salad, we bring lots of other dishes, and then we go for a long hike. Several hours later we come back, the food's been sitting in the sun, but we're really hungry, so we don't think about it, and we go ahead and we start to eat, and inevitably what's going to happen? Somebody's going to say, "Oh, I'm sick," and they're really feeling bad. And my question really is that person sick? When you think about it, I say the person that throws up first wins, because that's the body that identified that as bad food and said, "You know what, let's get this junk out of here." Some years ago, it got to be cliche and kind of cute to say that, there's this mind-body connection, as if there was a little thread between the two. We know absolutely without a doubt now that the mind and the body are an integrated whole. They're not just connected, but they're always functioning and influencing each other. Many years ago, I went to a seminar in Boston on mind-body medicine. There was a woman there named Candace Pert, who many of you might have heard of. She was speaking about some of the research that she'd been doing, and that they had found that cells that they used to think were only in the brain, thinking cells, were being found all over the body, and in fact in huge pockets, not only in the head, but here and here and here and so on. And then she put an overlay over those spots, and it matched exactly with the energy chakras. So what's fascinating is what we're finding is science and the metaphysical are coming together and telling us the similar things, only in different ways. We also know for sure that thoughts are real things. Some more amazing research done by Bruce Lipton and some others has totally bashed the idea, like I learned in chiropractic school, that DNA dictates who we're going to be, what kind of diseases we're going to get. We know that it's totally the opposite. That DNA responds to our thoughts, our emotions, the environment. And so what that does, it ends up making us more responsible for the choices that we make in terms of what we're saying, how we're thinking, what we're doing. But it's also beautiful in that we're not just the victims. These are things that we can change. We can change our health and we can change our life. A couple other examples of how we keep ourselves limited is most of us have heard how you take a little elephant and you tie it to a pole and it goes around and around and around for a while until such time as you don't even have to tie the elephant up anymore. And in its little elephant paradigm, that's all the further it thinks it can go, and then it'll never push that limit or boundary. How many of us are always just going around and around in the boundaries that we've actually put on ourselves or that accepted without questioning? Another example is a little story that I've heard where there's a little girl and she's watching her mother get the roast ready to put in this big roasting pan for Christmas. So she takes the roast, puts it in the pan, and cuts the ends off. And the little girl says, "Mommy, how come you're cutting the ends off the roast beef?" And she says, "Well, honey, that's what I was taught by my mother, and that's what her mother did, and your grandmother and your great-grandmother all did that." She goes, "Okay." So a few minutes later, great-grandmom comes in, or maybe it was great-great-grandmom, and the little girl runs up and says, "Great-great-grandmom, why did you cut the ends off the roast beef every Christmas?" And she said, "Dear, my pan at the time was so small, I had to cut the ends off the roast beef just so it would fit." So you can see how that's an example of something was perpetuated for years and nobody ever thought to ask why, and it was totally unnecessary, actually. There's a great quote by Deepak Chopra. He says, "Question dogma, question ideology, question outside authority. It's only when we question what people hold to be true, what people take for granted, that we can break the hypnosis of social conditioning." This is what we need to do, break this unconscious social conditioning that is getting us in lots of trouble these days, individually, socially, globally. It's my intention to keep this conversation going. Thank you, and I'll see you in San Diego.